Hey, everybody, don't forget to sign into the chat to get your attendance points for tonight, okay? Okay, so it's 7 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. Today, like the flyer said, we have Philip from Ross back with us again, and then we have Dr. Erica Little with us to talk. So I'll have them start, and then after they're done with their presentation today, I'm also going to have a couple people talk about Loop Abroad to South America. So they'll talk after everything, but we'll go ahead and get started.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thanks so much for having us tonight. Appreciate it. Let me go ahead and share my screen. It looks like.
Yep, I can give you that real quick.
Okay, perfect.
You should be able to now.
All right, can everyone see that? Okay, fantastic. Awesome. Well, nice to see everyone again. If you didn't join us last time, my name is Philip Jaroslaw, and I'm with Ross University School of Vet Medicine. This is a shot of our beautiful campus overlooking the water. As you can see, it's an open air campus, about 50 acres, so a beautiful place to go to vet school. And so we'll go ahead and get started today. And I'm really excited tonight because we actually have one of our faculty members coming from St. Kitts who's going to be presenting today with me. And her name is Dr. Erica Little. And I'm going to go ahead and let her introduce herself. And while she's doing that, this is a link at the bottom and a QR code. If you can either sign in with your phone or computer or take a picture of that QR code, that's how you can sign into the presentation today. But Dr. Little, can I kick it over to you to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thanks, Philip. And thanks, guys, for joining. I'm super excited to be here with you tonight. I only wish that COVID would have let us do some things in person, but we're all getting used to screen time. But please, if you have any questions at all, just reach out. You can, for me anyway, you can unmute yourself and just yell at me. It's fine. So just a little bit about myself. I actually went to K-State, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But overall, I am an equine surgeon, and I have been teaching. Actually, I was in private practice, and I was in private practice, and then actually came to St. Kitts to do some continuing education to introduce my husband to the island, because I did originate my veterinary education in St. Kitts at Ross. And during that time, he also fell in love with St. Kitts, as I had when I was here. And it just so happened a couple of years later that Ross was looking for 2 veterinarians, 1 surgeon. And so we took the leap and moved to St. Kitts, thinking we were coming for just a couple of years. And I really can't make myself go back to the US and private practice again. And in addition to the fact that I love teaching, I didn't know that when I moved here. I knew I liked teaching my interns. I knew I liked showing them how to do procedures, but really, really enjoy teaching. So it's been a great adventure for us. We've been here now 7.5 years. Seems weird to say, but and so tonight I'm happy to answer any questions you guys might have. So for my time in Kansas, for those of you wondering, I lived in Kansas, in Manhattan. I actually lived on Morrow, 9th and Morrow, for those of you who know the area. It was good walking distance from certain locations. And so lived in Manhattan from late 1999, so August, September of 99. And with a short break, I went to private practice, and then I returned and was there again. And so really the whole time I was there for about 1999 till 2004. And then the last time I was back was I just went back there was a reunion a few years pre-COVID. So, and things have definitely changed, but a few things are still the same. And I hope that So Long Saloon is still there. You guys can tell me. It's really like an amazing place. But anyway, enough reminiscing on my part. I'm here to answer any questions you guys might have, talk to you a little bit about Ross and all the cool things, and any other questions you might have from us. So thanks.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, so I thought I would kind of run through the our overall program a little bit, and then have Dr. Little kind of speak to some of the aspects of our campus that she's very familiar with. She is one of the leaders of the admissions committee on campus, and then she also helps students make their clinical transition back to the state. So I thought she'd be a great person to kind of answer some of those questions for you. So we'll go ahead and get started. Again, this is my contact information at the beginning. So if you have any questions when we're finished tonight, you want to reach out, shoot me an email, give me a call. I'm happy to answer anything for you. Down the road, if you're just getting ready to apply this year, or you're kind of down the line a few years too. So feel free to reach out. But just a couple quick facts about our DVM program. So as Dr. Little mentioned, we are based on the island of St. Kitts. Students spend 28 months doing their basic sciences on campus. Then they come back to the US for 1 year for their clinical rotations. And once a student graduates, they're actually eligible to practice in all 50 states without any restrictions. So the reason that is possible is because we are AVMA accredited. So it's the same accreditation that state schools have, and it means there's no extra board exams or foreign tests you'd have to take. So we were founded in 1982, so we have nearly 6,000 alums. And I think once we hit our May graduation, we should be surpassing 6,000 alumni. We do offer federal financial aid that you can apply for, and that can go towards your entire cost of attendance costs. We have 29 clinical partners around the world that you can do rotations at. 23 are in the US, and then we have 6 international affiliates. And then the facilities on our campus are very technologically advanced. We're constantly making updates to our campus to ensure that we're keeping up with the speed of vet medicine, but also ensuring that our students are getting the best education possible. So with that, I'll kind of talk about the timeline for your time at Ross. So as I mentioned, 28 months will take place down in St. Kitts where you do your basic sciences. So we're a little bit unique in that we actually have a year-round program. So it means you get about a 2-week break in between each class. So honestly, students really kind of prefer this setting because you have 2 weeks to kind of refresh, recharge, and then go right back into the curriculum. So having a year-round program, I think, is a real benefit to students. And Dr. Little, I can kind of kick it over to you. How do you find that students handle the kind of year-round experience going to vet school?
Yeah, Philip, I would agree with you. And to answer your question specifically, I think they handle it really well. For my own perspective as a student, for me, it allowed me to maintain my immersion, for lack of a better term. And so I shut off, I went and saw my family, I hung out on the beach some semesters that I might have stayed and actually got to enjoy St. Kitts and had people come here. But with it being not having that 3-month break, for me, it was very helpful to sort of keep my head in the game, if you will. So for me, it was much easier to come back in and be rested, but still ready to go with the information at my fingertips.
Awesome. Yeah, and so once you finish those 28 months, then you come back to the U.S. for your clinical rotations, which is semesters 8 through 10. That's also year-round. And during that time, everyone's going to take something called the NAVLE exam, which is the North American Veterinary Licensing Examination. This is the board that you must take and pass in order to practice in the States. And once you finish that in your 10 semesters, then you earn your DVM, and then you're ready for licensure. And I think the other big benefit here, of course, is that you finish in 3 years and 4 months, which of course means you get to start practicing sooner, which is the goal of all students, is to get right into practice. So I'm briefly going to talk about the curriculum and facilities and let Erica kind of discuss how that works, and she's so close with that aspect of our program. But I will say that we focus very much on a hands-on curriculum. We find that the more hands-on work students get, the better they do in the classroom and the more prepared they are for their clinical rotations. So that hands-on training is going to start right in semester 1 in the clinical skills lab and the anatomy lab. Very small group learning as well, maybe 4 or 5 students per group with a faculty or staff member with each group. And that really prepares you for what you're going to face in the large animal teaching facility and our small animal clinic that we have on campus, which is a working clinic. So Dr. Little, do you want to kind of speak to kind of how the curriculum is taught and how the hands-on training really prepares students for clinicals?
Yeah, absolutely. So just like Philip said, really from day one, you begin hands-on training, and some of that hands-on training is with live animals, actually a lot of it. And some of it is in specific skill-based laboratories using simulators and directed labs to help you improve and develop, I should say, your psychomotor skills. So think of things like identifying the size of different marbles, for lack of a better term, blindly, such that you can best train your fingers on how to determine the size of a mass or the size of a follicle on an ovary, things along that nature. And so it goes from something that simplistic to in your first semester, actually, one of your tasks is walking the dogs that live in our kennels. So we have our kennel dogs that stay with us for a period of time before they're adopted out. And you guys rotate through and walk them, which sounds silly, but there's a lot of emphasis on really how best to walk them, how to manage different behavior types, which you'll have to manage obviously in a practice setting, which is even beyond medicine, sort of bringing everything all together. As you progress through your program, you continue to build on those skills and continue to shadow and be exposed to more events, as well as our ovine herd. So you'll be learning how to do your physical exams as you come to the program on cattle, on sheep, as well as on horses. This is Chocolate here, you see, over to the left of my screen anyway. That's Chocolate. Chocolate is 32, something like that, I think, at this point. So we love Chocolate. He's my favorite. But anyway, that aside, so physical exams, and these guys are so good at teaching you physical exams. They, for the most part, are like your average normal patient, but they're tend to be much more patient, if you will, because they're used to students. And so also as you go through all of your skills and your labs, and you come through, you're going to be doing a whole lot of different laboratories, several of them on small animals. So learning how to properly evaluate your canine and feline patients, properly perform different skill sets. And then in your clinical skills and communication labs, specifically the communication section, we have a huge simulation lab where you practice your communication skills with another client. So you can put yourself in those settings where you may have to tell somebody some bad news about a patient. And so you work through that with your professors with a one-way window or a one-way mirror, if you will. So you can't see them, but they can see you. And then you guys critique each other and learn some really cool, effective ways of communication that I still to this day wish that I had in veterinary school, because I learned by trial by fire, saying the wrong thing too many times. And as you progress through in your 7th semester, you'll spend time in our AHA accredited small animal hospital, seeing patients and working alongside the clinicians there. And so it's really the whole thing sort of comes together, like Philip said, starting with the anatomy lab and culminating with live animal surgical procedures in your 7th semester.
Fantastic. And so with that, this is a shot of where St. Kitts is located. So we're located in the Caribbean, as we mentioned. So these are the different airports that you can connect to get down to St. Kitts. And just a couple quick facts about the island. If you like to hike, snorkel, scuba dive, it's all very available and accessible to you. I think there's 1 street light on the island now. Everything else is roundabouts. So, oh, there's 5 street lights. Okay, that's new since I've been there. But it's very easy and accessible to get around. And when you actually get down to the airport at Ross or in St. Kitts, we're going to greet you with a welcoming committee there. We're going to get you on the van and take you right to your on-campus housing. You know, we want to make sure the transition is very easy for you. We know a lot of students have never traveled away from home before, so we want to make sure that transition is very seamless when you're coming down to the island. And with that, for the first semester, generally you will live on campus, and we do this as we also think that this helps with the transition down there. You know, I will say overall, and probably Dr. Little could speak to this, but it's a very collaborative environment down there. Everyone really is working together on campus. You lean on each other. You're all away from home. You're all focused on the same goal. You don't have any distractions or family stuff going on. So everyone really kind of works together to fulfill this lifelong dream that they've had. And I think by living on campus for that first semester, it really kind of helps build that collaborative network around you. Of course, you can walk to and from school every day. You know, all of your furnishings are included with your rent. All of your utilities are included with the rent. So it's just kind of a nice environment to live on, you know, for that first semester. And then after first semester, everyone moves off campus, and we actually have a housing database that we work with. And, you know, we can kind of work with you on where you want to live, you know, what you want to spend, if you're bringing pets, things like that. And so it's a pretty easy transition to move off campus. And, you know, there's lots of options where you can walk to and from school every day. Some students choose to live closer to the beach, being like Frigate Bay, so it's a little bit more access to restaurants, things like that. And that's about 15 minutes away from campus. But again, everything's going to be fully furnished, everything down your utensils. So it's a really easy transition while you're living down there. So Erica, how was the transition for you moving down there? Obviously you'd been there before, but how was the transition when you moved down?
Moving down the second time was so easy. So when I lived here before, I'm old, right? So it was a while we didn't have dorms and all those kind of things. So it was very much here's your new life in a new island, and learn the ropes. But now there was people met me at the airport. They took me straight to I like to call it my halfway house. So my temporary housing that we stayed in until we found our place that we were comfortable in. We moved with pets, so that was also relatively easy. There is a little bit of work that needs to be done ahead of time, so you need to give yourself plenty of time for that. I'm sure Philip will touch on that, but for me, I thought it was great. You know, groceries, they take you to the grocery store, get you introduced to the bank, and everybody here was super helpful. How can we help you? Do you have any questions? Even before I came down, like, hey, reach out if you have any questions about what to bring, what not to bring. And I found it, just like Philip was saying, collaboration is probably the best term, very collegial. So it was, for me, it was easy.
Awesome. Yeah, in regards to bringing pets, we know that you're vet students, so a lot of students do want to bring their pets. So in general, the animals need to be up to date on their vaccinations. Then there's a quarantine period, about 30 days in your house or backyard, and then they're pretty much good to go. For on-campus housing, if you do have a pet that's under 35 pounds, you can also bring your pet on campus. And if you have specific questions about certain pets or animals, you can feel free to ask me at the end, or you can email me about that. I will say we don't allow horses down on campus, pigs, we don't. And I say these things because I've been asked these questions before. I think if you ship a horse, it would cost more than that's to bring a horse down. But anyway, so if you have specific questions about that, I can walk through some of that process as well. All right, so we do have a lot of clubs on campus as well. We have about 30 clubs that you can get involved with. And, some of them are very heavily involved with the faculty and staff on campus, such as the SAVMA Club. So if you want to get involved with student government, for example, maybe gain some leadership opportunities, the SAVMA Club is a great place to start. We do have a lot of clubs that work in animal welfare, for example. So there's like the Feral Cat Project, for example, where they do spay and neuter clinics around the island. First off, it's a really great organization because of what they do for the cat population there. But if you want to get more involved in surgeries kind of earlier on, joining the Feral Cat Project allows you to get involved with spays and neuters even before you do that in the curriculum. So it's kind of a bonus of being able to do that. We do have a lot of hobby-based clubs as well. So if you want to get into the scuba club or the country western dancing club, that's a great way to get involved as well. But a lot of these are student-run. They're very available to students. They're not going to bog you down for hours and hours. But I think the clubs are a great way to get involved. On campus, find students with similar interests to you. So, Erica, do you want to speak to anything about the clubs or organizations that are on campus?
I was just going to say that I would be remiss if I did not mention the kiteboarding club, because my husband happens to be the faculty advisor for the kiteboarding club. So if you like to kiteboard, and I know y'all are in Kansas, but there's Tuttle Creek, so you could probably kiteboard on Tuttle, right? So we used to call it Tuttle Puddle. I don't know if that's still a thing, but Caitlin's like, no. But yeah, so kiteboarding clubs, all kind of crazy things I see. Thank you, Philip, for having surgery club on here. So I'm also the faculty advisor for surgery club. But yeah, so there's so many, I can't keep up with all the things the students do. American Association of Equine Practitioners Club, small ruminants, the list goes on and on. So if you have an interest, you can certainly find a home here.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think this is a really important slide to talk about, and I'll let Erica kind of speak to this as well. But obviously, mental health is a very important aspect that everyone's focused on in the healthcare field and across the board. And so we want to make sure that our students feel very supported on campus. So there's a lot of different ways that we focus on this. First off, we have something called the Student Success Center, which is really designed to help students learn how to study on campus. There's advising in there. If you're struggling, with developing study skills, they can help you there. We have mentors on campus. There's tutors that are on campus. We do have a counseling center as well. So if you need someone to talk to about adapting to island life or being away from family, there's a lot of support on campus. So don't ever feel like you're doing this on your own. Like we said, it's a very collaborative network, and we're there to support you. And I guess maybe I'll just turn it over to Erica to kind of talk about the support that we have for students on campus.
Yeah, Philip, I think I would just probably echo what you said. The only thing I might add is also when you're here, our job as faculty, one of the cool things about working for Ross is my primary job is students. So we're incredibly student centric versus I don't know how you're feeling now, but I remember for myself in undergrad specifically was if I wanted to find one of my professors after hours, I had to show up between like 1:30 and 1:45, or there's these very specified hours. And students, we can meet with students really anytime, and we'll work to find mutually agreeable times. Pretty much everybody has a safe space environment. So if there's anything that you want to talk to people about, even Student Success Center, like Philip said, our counseling center, our director of student experience, or any faculty member who you may feel comfortable with, because we all have things, right? You gravitate towards certain people and not towards others, and that's okay. But your faculty is always here to support you. So when you're here, please remember that, because I think most of us are type A type personalities and we don't need help, quote unquote, right? And so the reality is that's not true. We just need to reach out. So please do. We're here for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, I mean, the island's not a huge island, so you get to know the faculty pretty well when you go out to eat, go to, shopping, things like that. You'll see them around and everything. But yeah, it's a very supportive network down there. And I think that's a great point, that the number one goal for the faculty there is to work with students. That's, a huge benefit, as you're going through such a rigorous program. So that's kind of your time down on campus. Now let's talk about the transition back to the States. So these are the different schools that we're affiliated with back in the US. We have 23 schools that we have contracts with, meaning assuming you pass the curriculum on the island, you're actually guaranteed a rotation spot back in the States. And I'm actually going to turn this over to Erica as well, since she kind of runs the clinical transition back to the States, to kind of give you just an overview of how it all works and how students make their decision and whatnot. So I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. So after your 7th semester, you will leave Island and go on your next adventure, which is 3 semesters in a row. So it's in 1 more year, so a calendar year essentially from whenever you finish, at which point in time it culminates in your DVM degree. So the way you get there is during your 6th semester, we'll give you a few lectures, actually several. You probably get annoyed from me, so we'll give you several lectures, kind of talking to you about the schools, how to identify what might work best for you. All students, as Philip said, in good standing. Obviously, you have to have a minimum of a 2.0 GPA, which that will happen over time. But you'll just, as you go through the program, I have faith in y'all that you're going to be fine. And so then we'll place you in one of these schools. Now, one of the biggest questions, I think, at least for myself, that I get from the 6th semester students is, do we have to go overseas? And that the answer to that is no. By overseas, I mean outside of the US. It's kind of weird because we're already overseas technically, right, in St. Kitts. But so outside of the US. And the answer to that is no. So certainly if you're interested in, and there are seats available, and we will present you to those affiliates out overseas. So that includes, and I'm sure Philip's going to talk about this later, but Australia, New Zealand, as well as the UK effectively. And so if you're interested in those, we can certainly talk about that, but we would not have to go there. So for those of you, let's say you're from, I'm going to pick a school here, Iowa. Well, why don't we just pick Kansas, since we're talking about Kansas? So let's say you're from Kansas, you really like to come back to Kansas. K-State accepts students every semester, which means 3 times a year, because we bring students in 3 times a year. And you would do your rotations at K-State, at the vet school at K-State, with the exception of your electives, your externships, things like that, where you go out to specialty hospitals. And so in your 6th semester, you'll talk with either myself or Dr. Batanz, who's the assistant dean for this, and kind of learn more about how all this works and some of the finer details. And then the beginning of your 7th semester, we have the big reveal. So a couple other clinicians and myself get together and work really hard, looking at all of your desires, your GPA, all these things kind of come together so that we can properly place you where we think that you will be the best. And so that big reveal is the end of your 3rd week of your 7th and last semester on island. And so we have a ceremony and do the big reveal, take some pictures, and then from there on, you know where you're going to go after your 7th semester. So that gives you the rest of that semester to call your family, right? We all make our families do things for us when they're there and we're not here. So and start working towards your reentry to the US, essentially. And then at the end of your 7th semester, you are off to clinics.
Yeah, so and honestly, with the training that you're getting down in St. Kitts, students are very prepared for their rotations. The clinical directors know Rossi's. Obviously, there's fellow Rossi's rotating there as well, so they know that they're going to be prepared and ready to go into their rotations when they start in one of these hospitals or start one of these schools. And these are the 6 international affiliates that you could come back to as well. Again, like Dr. Little said, this is not something that you have to do. If you want to stay in the States, you can. But if you'd like to continue that study abroad experience, I think this is a great opportunity to do so. And the big thing to look at here too is all of these schools are ABMA accredited, meaning that if you went to one of these universities, you could still come back, take the NAVLE, and still be eligible to practice in all 50 states. So, again, it just gives you a lot of different options of where you can come back to, depending on what region you want to be in and whatnot.
Unless you want another adventure, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So now I'm going to briefly walk through the admissions process, and then I want to leave some time open for questions at the end for everybody. But I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with VEMCAS. You can definitely apply to our university through that application service. Obviously the thing to remember with VEMCAS is it does have an opening date and it does have a closing date. And once VEMCAS is closed, you are unable to apply to state schools until the next cycle opens up. So as we mentioned, we have 3 start dates per year: January, May, and September. So let's say VEMCAS is closed, or you hit a glitch when you're going to hit submit, which I know does happen because I get a lot of calls around September 13th, 14th or so of people trying to get their applications in. You can actually apply directly through our website, and we can process your application directly through our team that works in New Jersey. So I do have a recommendation if you're applying through VEMCAS. Obviously you have to apply, once you have basically all of your ducks in a row and everything. But I do recommend, if you have the ability, to try and submit your application earlier, because obviously most people are going to submit their application later, which of course means more applications are coming in, which means it can take a little bit longer for decision times to come back. And we like to really get you a decision sooner so that if you are accepted, you've got plenty of time to plan it out, plan out your life, get prepared to come down to Island, things like that. So if you have the ability to apply early, I do recommend doing that if you can. Now, obviously, like I said, you have to have all your ducks in a row to do that, but just a recommendation we have. So there are 3 start dates, and we have several reasons of doing this. First off, we want to make sure that our class sizes do remain very balanced for each intake that comes in. Also, depending on when you graduate, or for some students who may be taking a gap year, which is very popular now, maybe you're taking a gap year to prepare for the GRE, maybe, get some more experience. Midway through that gap year, you decide, I really kind of want to get started sooner. January, May can be a real benefit because it allows you to start sooner and you don't have to wait all the way until that September class starts. So it gives you a little bit of flexibility in regards to when you can start that school. And then also on the back end, when you start the rotations, a lot of our schools back in the States take students 3 times a year, which means you wouldn't have to wait. Let's say you started in May, you wouldn't have to wait for the September students to finish to start your rotation on the back end. So there's a lot of different benefits, and it really kind of gives you some flexibility as to when you can start that school. And then here are the curriculum requirements listed for you. And, these are pretty standard, I would say, for most vet schools. So I won't spend a lot of time here, but math would be stats or calculus. For your electives, this could be anything from comparable anatomy to, intro to business, sociology, psychology. If you have specific questions on some of these, you can definitely, feel free to reach out to either of us. But I will say for some of these courses, for example, like biochemistry, for example, we generally will not take an intro to biochem course. We're looking for like a general biochemistry or survey of organic chemistry. We're looking for an organic chemistry course. I know each school does have different names for certain, classes. So definitely shoot me an email with a certain class and I can check in that for you. But just as kind of a general rule for you. We do also require at least 48 college credits that include these prereqs, and then students can apply to our program. So if you are a career changer coming back to school, or you're looking to just start school sooner, in theory, you don't have to have a bachelor's degree in order to start in the program. So just think about that. And so with that, this is the admissions criteria that the admissions committee will be looking at. And I'm going to kick this over to Erica too in a minute because she's, she leads the admissions committee. But I will say that these factors are very heavily looked upon from the committee, and they really do break it down by a case-by-case basis. You're not compared to another student, you're looked at, case by case. So biggest question we get is what's your minimum GPA, what's your minimum GRE? And I would say we don't really look at it that way. I would say maybe the average GPA for a student is probably right around a 3.2 with maybe a GRE of about 300. But we'll look at a lot of different factors like academic trends, for example. We know that students struggle sometimes early on in their academic career, but as they progress, build up study skills, things like that, their grades do improve. We know students work well in school. Some students play a sport. All this stuff takes time and can impact your academic career. And with the GRE, it was optional in 2021. Due to COVID, we knew it was difficult for students to, get into testing centers or take it online, things like that. So we did make it optional. But I will say that we do encourage students to take the GRE. Sometimes it can also offset maybe a different point of your application. If you struggle, that's another point that you feel, you can do well in the GRE or you did well in the GRE, that can offset that. So with that, Erica, do you have any kind of things that you'd like to touch on in regards to the GPA and the GRE requirements?
I really think, Philip, that you did a great job sort of explaining how that works, because it's true, there's no minimum GPA or minimum GRE. Now, certainly if you started out poorly in school and you continue to do poorly, it's going to be a problem, right? So as far as I would say specifically with your prerequisite coursework, in order to be considered as having successfully completed that course, you would need to get at least a C in the course. Obviously, do as well as possible, but so a D is considered failing as far as when we look at a prerequisite grade. And but other than that, the biggest thing is life happens, guys, right? And we all change our minds, maybe in school, maybe some of us made some poor decisions during our freshman or sophomore year and kind of realized or maybe found our passion later and decided, oh wow, I need to like buckle down, and all of a sudden, you know, we see this great increasing trend of increased GPA and grades, and you're exceptional. Other things I would add, I would say, is the letters of recommendation. So with this, and Philip will speak to this, I'm sure also, but there are 2 letters of recommendation. But when you're looking at this, one of them is from an academic, so somebody that you had in school. And so it's great if you can have somebody, like, say maybe a class was not your cup of tea. For me, that's organic chemistry. I think that's for like the vast majority of humans in life. But I also sat in my professor's office probably 3 days a week, just at his doorstep waiting. I remember vividly. And so, you know, those professors, they may say, you know, at first the student, you know, was having a hard time, but she demonstrated perseverance, resilience, like she pushed through, she worked really hard, and she ended up with this B grade in my class, which is excellent. You know, so those are the kind of things that can kind of tell us more about who you are, other than, oh yeah, she was a student in this class, and based on my transcripts here, she did great. So as you're going through school, I would strongly suggest to you that you work to build relationships with your faculty in your current science courses, and that's helpful for us to get a better picture of really who you are, in good times and in bad, I might say, right? Going back to organic, and then also the personal interview. Philip is one of our, we call them their ADAs, so Associate Directors of Admissions, as well as his many other hats that he now wears. But and he's historically been one of our interviewers. And for myself, as part of the academic admissions committee, it's so helpful to know that I know what Philip's looking for. And Philip has now, I'm using Philip as an example, has now interviewed Katie here. And he says, Katie showed up, she was professionally dressed, AKA not in her bed, in business clothing. The area cleaned around her, not in a Starbucks, right? So professionally dressed, prepared for the interview, done some research about the school she was interviewing for. And, you know, and all these things, the demeanor, the body language, and sort of how that interview goes can really give us a better glimpse into who you are. So you are not just your grades, right? And your GRE. I think is probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great point you bring up. And it's, you know, I've interviewed a lot of students in my time, and, you know, I've seen cats walking across the screen, and, you know, people show up in t-shirts, things like that. It is a professional environment. I'd say for any interview you have in life, you know, you want to make sure you're in a professional environment. You know, obviously everything is virtual, so just make sure that from here up is at least professional. But, you know, this is an opportunity for you to talk about who you are. And if you've struggled in your parts of your academic career or anything in your application, talk about what we've done to overcome some of those challenges. You know, our role as an interviewer is to translate that information to the admissions committee. So that's what we're looking for. So, you know, so just to kind of add a couple more things here, we do require at least 150 hours of clinical experience. Professional letter of recommendation will be from a DVM as well. We want to ensure that you've worked in a clinical setting, whether you've shadowed, worked as a vet tech, vet assistant, you know, you've dealt with clients, you know, you've seen euthanasia, you know, those important factors that you need to know about before starting in the vet field. And then for the personal essay, that would be the 3 questions that MCAS requires. That would suffice our personal statement. And then as the interviewer, as we said, you know, our role is to get to know you a little bit. And then we write an evaluation for the admissions committee who makes the final decision. And so with that, there are 3 decision possibilities that can come back. There's acceptance, there's denial, and then we have something called the vet prep program. And this is a fantastic program that's designed to really help students prepare for first semester and beyond. So it's almost, if you want to consider it like a bridge program to vet school, students take these courses listed here. If they pass the curriculum in vet prep, they're guaranteed a spot in first semester. So I think it's great for students who really show potential. We just feel like they need a little more preparation, and if they pass, they're guaranteed admission into first semester. So maybe Erica, do you want to speak to vet prep and what might the admissions committee lean towards a decision for a vet prep decision for a student?
Sure. Yeah. And so vet prep, I think, is a great opportunity for students. There's several different reasons I might suggest the student start in vet prep. Probably the most common, honestly, for me is the student who's been out of school for several years. So maybe this is a second career for somebody. Maybe like Philip said, you started your gap year and then you had this really cool experience and ended up being a 4-year gap. Well, for me, vet prep is a really good way to sort of bring you back to studying and bring you back into sort of that mindset. And so as somebody who went back to school later in life after I did all my other school and then I was crazy, so I went back, but I can attest to the fact that it really is a change to learning to sort of sit down again and study and focus in the evenings instead of just going to work and coming home. And so I really think on that aspect, that prep can be excellent for those people to really make sure your feet are under you and you're ready to go. Other things for vet prep that I consider are students who are maybe just need, I think, a little more foundation. They're maybe not, I'm concerned that if I put them in first semester, then I'm setting them up for failure. And what I would like to do is set you up for success. And so if you're sort of on that cusp, I don't want to deny you. I'd like to see you succeed. I'd like to give you that opportunity. And so I feel like if we can get you a little bit more of maybe that medical math, a little more basic cellular physio, so that when you hit physio 1 and physio 2, you have that good foundation. Because once you start vet school, life gets pretty real. You know, it's no longer sort of the study the night before the test kind of thing and succeed. You know, it's a 60+ hour work week of school. And I don't say that to scare you, but just to be a realist. And so all of these courses in the vet prep program, consistently when I speak to students who have gone through vet prep, they continually say, I'm shocked at how much of vet prep I've used throughout my program. So, and how much it set them up to be even ahead of their peers, because they're like, oh yeah, we talked about this in vet prep, and yet we're going to sort of the next layer of the onion is if when you have me in class, you'll get that because I say it all the time. I can't help myself. But and so it really helps set them up and provide that foundation such that things are not just this brand new inundation to you. And so those are probably my 2 biggest sections that I utilize that prep for.
And it's funny you mentioned that because we have student ambassadors on campus that we work with who talk to prospective students who are in our program, and several of them have actually gone through vet prep, and some of the top students in their class right now. And that's exactly what they said. It's just amazing how much it prepared them for not just first semester, but beyond, and how much they've done since that time. So this is a great opportunity if you're selected into vet prep. And then finally, this is the breakdown here of your basic sciences and your clinical training for tuition. So pretty comparable to out-of-state school or a private university. And as I mentioned at the beginning, you are able to use federal financial aid that can go towards your entire cost of attendance across your flights, your housing, food, basically all of life at vet school. We do also offer scholarships that students can apply for as they're going through the application process. One I do like to highlight is the Alumni Legacy Scholarship. So if you have the opportunity to work with a Ross alum or shadow a Ross alum and they can write you a letter of recommendation, oftentimes you could qualify for a scholarship for the Alumni Legacy Scholarship. So as you're trying to get those clinical hours, something to think about, as you're gaining those hours. So that's kind of an overview of the program from several standpoints. So this is my contact information here. Anybody who joined late, this link right here at the bottom is where you can sign into the presentation tonight, or you can take a picture of that QR code and that get you some more information on our program. But I wanted to open it up to any questions you might have for Dr. Little or myself, whether you want to shout them out or you can type them in the chat, whatever's easier for everyone. So I'll open the floor. And I apologize, that's my 3-year-old downstairs yelling. So if you hear that background noise, that's him.
I have to say my dogs have been only barking when I mute myself. It's like they know.
Well, they know, that's good.
Good dog. Also, while you guys are thinking of questions, speaking of dogs, because squirrel, but if you come down here without a pet, that's okay because you will likely go home with several pets. So
Yes,
don't feel like you wouldn't have any.
very common.
I had a cat. I have 3 cats and 2 dogs currently.
Dr. Little, when you're doing your matching process for going into the 8th semester, what's a good distinction for people, like when you're looking at people and students, what's a good distinction where you think they'll be a good applicant to go out of the country?
Oh, to go maybe UK or New Zealand or
like-
something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a good question. So honestly, it's your desire. So I would never even consider placing anybody unless they came to me, because in your 6th semester, we interview every single student individually. You guys have about 20-minute interview, speaking with Dr. Batanz or myself, and we talk about sort of your goals, what are your interests, where in your ideal world would you just love to go to your clinical year. The reality is it doesn't matter, quote unquote, and I say that because every school we send you to has an excellent core program. They're all ABMA accredited, and so you're going to get the same education effectively. And so I would never consider saying, Caitlin, she looks like somebody who would do well in London. I'm going to put her in London. So that would, the only time I would put you in one of those places would be if you said, I would really love to go to Edinburgh or London or Dublin if possible. And I would say, okay, those are her choices. So we ask you guys, actually right now we ask for 4 choices, just because it gives us a better idea of kind of your mindset. And so we try to utilize one of your 4 choices when we place you as much as possible. And I would say the last several semesters, everybody's gotten at least one of their 4 choices. So good question.
Any other questions, anybody?
You guys are quiet. Nobody's asked about bringing a snake in or a parrot. I'll never forget when someone asked about bringing a snake in.
Yeah.
Can you at least go over the process of what it's like bringing over a pet?
Sure, Phil, if you want to take this one, you want me to take it? Oh, okay. So the biggest thing here is we are a rabies-free island, and so that's the hugest hurdle, so to speak. Basically, your pets have to be fully vaccinated. They will need 2 rabies titers. The fact that you're in Kansas makes it easy because you don't have to FedEx anything. You can go right to the K-State lab because that's where the rabies titers are done. And so, but 2 rabies titers, and they have to be at least 30 days apart. So, and they can't be any sooner than 30 days after a rabies vaccine. So if you have a dog that's been vaccinated, no big deal. Okay, you can go get your titers. But say if you have a puppy that maybe just got their rabies vaccine, well, now you got to wait 30 days, get your titers, then another 30 days, get your next titers. And then from there, it's health certificates. And then there's a process actually on our website that also walks you through it with our veterinary officer here on St. Kitts. And there's some paperwork, and they meet you at the airport when you fly in and check out your pet, make sure they're outwardly healthy. Usually to be honest, usually they just look in the kennel and they're like, okay, you have your paperwork. And then you go from there. Once you're here, like Philip said, there is a 30-day quarantine. That is at your house with you. So that's not anywhere else. So I think that's important to know. So your pet stays with you the whole time, but you can't go take them running on the beach for that month. They have to stay in your yard. wherever you're staying. And then the veterinary and the island vet, so the agriculture vet here on island, will come by once a week to check on them and just make sure that when you're home, I think it's just sort of making sure you're doing what you're supposed to do and that there's no issues arising. So it's really pretty easy, but it does take a bit of time. It's some paperwork, you know.
And that can only happen once you're out of the dorms, correct?
No, you can bring pets up to 35 pounds into the dorms. Dogs and cats, I should probably specify to the best of my knowledge.
I think it's just dogs and cats from what I know from now.
Yeah, I honestly though, I don't know if anybody's brought like a bird or something or a rabbit. I just don't know, but.
So, and that's kind of a new change for us in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Allowing pets up to the first. Any other questions for anybody else?
They're quiet tonight.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I want to be aware of everyone's time, but I just want to thank you all for the time tonight. Really appreciate it. Dr. Little, thanks for jumping on from, I think it's, what is it, almost 9 o'clock there in St. Kitts. So I appreciate your time and willingness to jump on. Any last words of wisdom or advice for the students at K-State about preparing for vet school?
They're not gonna like what I have to say, Philip. It's my favorite line and nobody likes it. But I always say, study, study, it's your buddy. And I have friends who say, no, study, have no buddies, but just study with your buddies. But yeah, in all honesty, just keep your eye on the prize. It's easy for all of us to get derailed. I know this last year has been rough on everybody and I just commend you all for pushing through, so.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. And yeah, thank you everyone for setting this up for us tonight. And if you have any further questions, shoot me an email, give me a call. I'm happy to answer anything for you. So you all have a great night. Stay safe and take care.
Yeah. Thank you both.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good night.
Thanks.
You too. Bye.
All right. And then I'm going to have Liz talk really fast. She's going to talk about Loop Abroad to South Africa. This is a thing that she's been heavily interested for the past couple of years and kind of forerunning. So I'll have her talk about it. She's actually in vet school right now at K-State. So I'll have her talk real quick.
Hi guys. Yeah, as Kaylin said, I'm a first year at K-State and I have previously gone on a Loop Abroad trip to Thailand. I think 2019 before I applied to vet school here. And South Africa trip, actually, they decided that we're not going to do that this upcoming summer, but instead it's South America, specifically Costa Rica. But Jane Stein is going to share some more about Loop Abroad, and she can only stay until roughly 8. And so I'll stay later if anyone had any more questions about it or my experience or whatever. Thanks.
Hi guys, I'll do my best to hang around as late as I can. Tomorrow's my son's 5th birthday and I still have to make his whole birthday. So I'm running out of day a little bit. Can everybody hear me? I was laughing when Erica was talking about people bring a snake to Ross, because I once had a student ask if on their 2-week program they could bring their emotional support fish. And I'm like still recovering from that. It was like 5 years ago. I hope it wasn't any of you. It was a long time ago. No is the answer to that. You can't. So yeah, we've got some options for this summer. So unfortunately, we can't go to South Africa this summer. We just don't feel that it's a safe choice with the medical services that are available if someone were to get sick. We can't go to Australia because Australia is closed. Like no one can go to Australia. There are no flights. There's no one going. But we do have a lot of program options available. And I think the programs we're sort of thinking about and talking about for your group are in Costa Rica. So maybe what would be helpful is if I just talk for like 5 minutes about what the different options in Central America are for this summer, and what it might look like to choose a program for a group for that. And I'd also like to talk about virtual options quickly as well. What I'm going to do is go ahead and share something with you guys, which is just, well, if I can get the link to work. A link to sign up for our mailing list, which we usually share when we come to a pre-vet club. And somebody from this meeting who signs up for the mailing list in this meeting will win our virtual suture class, which is normally $299 and comes with a suture kit in the mail. So if you're interested in being entered to win that, you can sign up for the mailing list. We send an average of about an email a month. So it's not oppressively too many emails. So let's talk about in-person programs first. For summer open, we have Thailand programs are open. They do have a 2-week, 10-day quarantine right now, which is kind of a bummer, but we're giving a free virtual course to kind of offset that 2-week quarantine along with the program. And then in Central America, we have 2 programs in Belize, a Jaguar program and a large animal and marine program. We have, I think our Panama medicine program is actually full. And then in Costa Rica, we have a few really good options. And so I think the one you were most interested in is the sea turtle, right? It's a sea turtle research program, and it's a 2-week program. It's on the Osa Peninsula in Costa Rica, which is a really beautiful area. And it's a boat-based research program. So you're going out each day in the boat and finding sea turtles and then measuring them and weighing them and tracking them and doing all this really hands-on research. So if you don't have research hours, which you need for your VMCAS, and this is a really good way to earn a lot of them, there are a few other options for Costa Rica, both that are open for a regular enrollment and that we could talk about doing specifically for a group of students. So I'm just going to talk about those quickly. One of those is a 2-week program, which has a long fancy name, but we always call it Dogs and Dolphins because it's a week of small animal working with dogs and then a week of dolphin research also on the Osa Peninsula. And that is lab-based, and it's not dolphins in captivity. It's wild dolphins that they've been researching for 15 years. So it's going out in the boat and tracking those guys and then learning what they're doing in their lab. We also could potentially do a 2-week version of just the dolphin research component. So if we are interested in the research component, but we'd rather do dolphins than sea turtles, we can shuffle that around and have just that piece for you guys if we had a big enough group. Usually a minimum group to do their own custom program is 8 students. So there's a lot of options there. If it turns out we have, more than 8 students who want to go, but they don't all want to go together, that would work just as well. Or if we can find a date that everyone agrees on and wants to do something. I think you were looking kind of later in the summer, but there are options all throughout the summer, depending on people's schedules. We aren't going to have group flights for Central America, but we are going to have suggested flights. So that if you want to book on something someone else will be on, you can book the suggested flight, or just an airport window where someone will be available to pick you up at the airport, and very clear instructions on what you need to do when you get there. So I'm going to talk quickly about virtual options as well, and then we can circle back to answering questions about specifically for this summer in Costa Rica. Because I know that travel this summer is tricky, right? And the question is like, what about COVID? What do I need? So to go to Costa Rica, you need a COVID test, a negative COVID test within 3 days before travel. And you need to have medical insurance, but that's it. There's no quarantine. In Costa Rica, you're going to wear a mask, just like you do, hopefully, on your home campus or at home. We will have a travel pod. So your group and your staff member that's traveling with your group will have all been tested before travel. And so they will be able to be together without masks. So in your housing, when you're eating meals, when you're in the van, but when we're with anyone else or when we're in the clinic at all, where other volunteers or day guests might be, you're going to have masks on. And anytime we're doing any sort of tourism activities, you're going to have a mask on. And then you'll have to test again before you come back. So it's pretty doable. I would say pretty similar to what you're probably doing at home, right? The only place that would be significantly different would be Thailand, which has like 50 cases of COVID in the whole country or something. So you don't have to be quite so vigilant with the masks. So if you're not feeling like traveling in that time frame, virtual is a really good option, especially if you feel like you're behind on vet hours or research hours. So we do have courses, virtual courses, where you can earn college credit. Those are from University of Findlay, and they're 3 credits each. They're all 300 level bio courses in animal science. And there's courses in elephant medicine and big cats and sea turtles and all kinds of things you may want some specialized information in. They're quite affordable for 3 credit college classes. Then we also have internships, which are live veterinary shadowing hours. So you have to talk to the vet schools you're applying to and see if they count them, they categorize them as vet hours or they categorize them elsewhere. I know that at least 12 schools do count virtual veterinary shadowing as vet hours. I know of one that doesn't. That's UC Davis. I don't know about a number of them. So you'd want to check school by school on where you'd list it. But it is live veterinary shadowing with our vets primarily in Thailand, but also in Costa Rica and in Belize. And those are some really cool opportunities to get up close. If you think about things we may not be able to let you get up close to in person because they're not safe for you or they're not safe for the animal, that changes when it's virtual, and what you can get close to and see up close and have a vet to talk to about really expands. So the student experience has been really great. Excuse me. And then on the research side, I'll give you an example, like our South Africa research program is working with black-footed cats and with the big cats and small cats at the Laurie Park Zoo. So it's understanding how to observe and record animal behavior, primarily through camera trap footage at the zoo. And then you use that research to design an enrichment for the animal you've been working with, which the zoo staff then implements. And then you can watch the new video tracking footage of how that enrichment was received. So it's really a full-scale research project from beginning to end. There's a 60-hour version and a 100-hour version. So you're not meeting with them for 100 hours. You know, you're meeting your research team like once a week and then working on your own in between. The shadowing experiences are live. And so, for example, the ones in Thailand take place in the morning at Thailand, so they take place in the evening in the US. And the veterinary staff there lives at the Elephant Nature Park, which has 60 elephants, but also has over 1,000 cats and over 600 dogs and various other homeless wandering animals that show up. Sometimes there's like a pig and a horse. Sometimes there's a bear. You just never really know. But it's primarily focused on small animal medicine. And there's a lot to learn and a lot to do. So it's a really cool program. So those are lots of virtual options happening throughout the summer. And I'll preface this by saying, or not preface, I'll follow it up by saying, if you're interested in virtual, but you're worried about the tuition, please don't be shy about reaching out, because I do have some funding available for virtual programming. And virtual programming doesn't have that overhead of like a flight or pieces that are really difficult when we're looking at financial aid. So I'm going to put my email. It's not rocket science. It's just jane@loopabroad.com. And if you're interested in virtual, but you're like, I don't know how the hours will work, or what if I do two, or I can't afford it or whatever, please reach out and let me know, and we'll help you figure it out. All right. So what I'll do is, I think, just take questions, or we can answer questions, or maybe let you guys talk a little bit about what we're thinking of a program for the summer, or if you want to know more about any of those specific Costa Rica programs, I can answer those. Just feel free to turn your mic on or to type in the chat window, whatever is easier.
Now with the vaccine, the COVID vaccine becoming more available, is that going to become either a requirement or maybe a alternative to the COVID tests?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't expect it to become a requirement in that time. There's nothing, I don't know, I'm not the Costa Rican government or the US government, but there's no indication that that will be a requirement. And if it isn't a requirement of entry to the country, it's not a requirement for us. So we're setting our travel requirements based on what's required by the US, what's required by the country you're going to, which is Costa Rica, and what's required by the airlines to get you in between. However, there has been some movement in Central America, and it's already happened in Belize, to say you either have to have a negative test or a COVID vaccine, or a test that says you got over COVID and you don't have it anymore. And so could they say, you know, and if you have a vaccine, you don't need to get the test? Yes, I think there's some precedent for that. I think we're sort of telling everyone to plan that they'll need a test, because the test is, you know, reasonably priced. It's pretty quick. You can plan for that. And if it turns out you don't need it, great. In Thailand, for example, they do require it now, but they're talking a lot about eliminating the quarantine if you are vaccinated. Yeah, so I think this is a good idea to sort of poll the group and see where people are interested, which trip they're interested in. So sea turtles is all research. It's not a vet. There's not a vet. It's a conservation research-based program. The dolphin program, same thing. Not a vet, conservation-based research program. More labby, like not sciencey. That's not a word, but more data analysis on the dolphin program. But going out on the boat, wild dolphins coming up next to the boat, the whole deal. There are some whales in the area as well. and then the combo where we do 1 week with the dog, 1 week of small animal with the dogs, and then 1 week with the dolphins is a possibility as well. So lots of choices there and lots of dates open throughout the summer that could kind of shuffle around depending. The latest one is the one you're looking at, July. I'm just looking at the schedule over here, July 28th to August 10th. And whatever questions anyone has about any of those, you can see the itineraries online. But I think we should sort out soon if we're going to try to do a group what those dates might look like. I know there were a lot of folks excited to go to South Africa, I think last summer, right? And then the world was closed and now the world is still closed. We're trying. There, you know, South Africa technically Americans can go to, but we have to look at more than that. We have to look at like what happens if you get sick. Is there somewhere that can help you get healthy? And the answer is pretty much no in South Africa. So it just wouldn't be a wise choice. I know it's frustrating. But I do think these are some really good options. I'm headed down to Costa Rica at the beginning of May to go check out some of these, you know, get everything set up for the summer in person. And we'll be sharing some really, I hope, really cool videos of all these new locations. It's the first place I ever lived abroad. So I have sort of a soft spot in my heart for it. I think it's going to be a really great opportunity. And the Sea Turtle program, actually, our vet, Dr. Erica Ward, went on a similar program with this organization when she was a student and was like, it was the best trip I ever did. We have to go there. So it comes really highly recommended. And she's been everywhere. So, you know, when she says that, it's the real deal.
Yeah, I'm hoping that the Costa Rica trip happens, specifically the Sea Turtle one. It looks really interesting. And I've also been to Costa Rica before, just like on vacation for a couple weeks, and I loved it. And I've been to a decent amount of places too, and it's definitely like top places. Like I could see myself graduating and practicing there. So yeah, really excited and hoping this trip works out and we get a decent amount of people interested in it.
Yeah, and I think being able to go together is a really awesome experience because it's really, as you know, fun when you go and you meet new people that aren't from your school. But there's something special when you have the experience together and you have the same undergraduate experience that's like informing what you're learning. You can kind of build on it in a different way. So that is a neat experience. The Sea Turtle program is also slightly cheaper than some of the other programs because it doesn't have a traveling veterinarian.
Gotcha. Yeah, I still have good friends in a group chat with people I made friends with from my Thailand group when I went through Loop Abroad. So yeah, it's
amazing to see how long that lasts. Like people 10 years later who are like in each other's weddings, who are living together while they're in vet school. So we do have our first set of Loop Abroad alumni getting married.
Oh, wow.
Pretty soon. So, you know, you never know.
Any other questions, guys? Any questions about food? I remember one year somebody was like asking about the food all the time.
That's the most common thing people ask about. They ask about, not to make you have to come up with questions, but they ask about, is my phone going to work? And the answer is like, probably, but sometimes not. What is the food going to be? And when we have so many students who go to Thailand, Thailand's our biggest country and we've been going there for 12 years. So like thousands of students going to Thailand. And so many of them just eat like rice and watermelon and French fries the whole time and are like, no, I'm not eating any of this. I lived in Thailand for 5 years. I love Thai food. So like, I don't really get it, but I do know that if you don't feel good and you're traveling and you're hot and you're used to eating the same thing all the time and you get somewhere where they're like, it's vegetarian Thai food. You're like, no, it's not. Costa Rica is a lot more approachable in that way. So very similar in a lot of ways to, right? Central American food generally, I'm generalizing, of course, compared to food in the US, lots of similar ingredients, lots of like meat and rice or meat and potatoes or meat and bread with vegetables, like approachable, plenty of non-spicy things, lots of options. We can accommodate vegan, vegetarians, all that. So I don't think anyone will find the food like scary. I know Thailand's like a little much for people sometimes, although well, some Thai food is a little scary, but mostly it's pretty good. Northern Thai food there's a lot of fermented animals in there. It's a lot of fermenting going on. Another common question that comes up is scholarships. Are there scholarships? There are, it's a little late. Some of the bigger scholarships, the Gilman Scholarship will reopen soon, but it will be for fall. By the way, if you're all in school, if you're a US citizen and you have a Pell Grant, which is the financial aid you get based on your household income, you really, really, really should look at the Gilman Scholarship, whether you want to go on Loop Abroad or not, because you can use it. It's from the US State Department. You can use it on millions of programs. I'm going to type the name here. You just have to Google it. It's not through us. You'll find it. The Gilman Scholarship. It's a $5,000 scholarship to study abroad, and you can use it for virtual programs. Like you can do a whole semester with us with an internship for free if you get the Gilman Scholarship. And they give out like 3,000 of them a year. 3 out of every 10 people who apply get it. So like, just apply for it. It's worth applying for. So many people who apply get it. If you are a Pell Grant recipient and you're a US citizen and you want to travel somewhere, you can do it for free if you get the Gilman Scholarship. So you should apply for that. Another question that comes with credit. So K-State has a special, it's not an approval program, special something waiver program for this summer for programs to get approved for COVID. I think there's already a K-State student doing this program, so I think it's already been submitted for approval. I don't know if it's been approved yet. If it's not approved, that doesn't mean you can't go. It's just whether your school, officially endorses that or not. So we have already submitted the information to them about Costa Rica to the study abroad department, and they would know who was applying and have your information so that if something went wrong, you'd be trapped in their system. Those are the big questions I can think that come up. I think sometimes people don't know that they either don't know that they need research hours or they don't know what that means. Like what do those research hours look like? How many is good? Where do I really get them? Having 100 of hands-on animal-based research hours would be really good. I asked all the questions for you. See?
I was like, I think those are the biggest ones that I've heard over the past couple of years.
Yeah, I don't do so much these things anymore because these things all used to be in person, and I lived in Thailand, and I'm not going to fly to Kansas although that's the last place I went in pre-COVID. I came out to Kansas State for a study abroad fair, and then 2 days later I went to the APVMA symposium, pre-vet symposium last year, and then the quarantine started like a day later, and that's like the last time I left my house. It was like basically on your campus, like a year and a half ago.
Fine, it's totally fine. Everything's fine.
Yeah, it's great. I moved to America in the end of February of 2020. Good timing.
That's rough.
And then I moved to DC 2 weeks before that insurgents on the Capitol down the street.
Oh my God.
Don't follow me for moving advice is what I'm saying. Not so good on the choices of where to move. But other than that,
Full send.
yeah, just a nightmare. I'm from Thailand, which again is totally fine. They've had a total of 50 deaths from COVID in the country of Thailand. They're all my friends' kids are like going to school, going to the beach, partying it up. Us too. It's okay. We're vaccinated now.
Yay.
You guys have access to the vaccine?
Yep, I've got my first one.
Yeah, I
Okay,
got my first.
that's good. That's very encouraging. So remember, this link too. It's up at 8:51 p.m. in the chat. 5 of you have signed up. 6 of you have signed up, which is good. And one of the people who signs up from the club today will get. I'll just send you an email randomly. You might get offered some deals on some other virtual stuff. Who knows? But the suture course is really cool. Actually, let me put out a little info about the other virtual courses while I'm here.
Yeah, and for all the members, since I'm recording this meeting, that also means the chat is being recorded. So if you need that link at any time, I can send it to you.
Cool. I'm just uploading. It's going to take like 1 second, a PDF of that work. Do you see it? Yeah.
Mhm.
Of the virtual options for summer. There are, like we said, a lot of in-person options for summer as well. But hopefully you'll have enough of a group who wants to do one thing, or even 2 like mini groups that want to do 2 things, that we can get y'all placed. So let me know about that soon, or Mary Beth, I know you've been working with.
Mhm.
But we're around to answer questions and to help you figure it out. It's late in the year, but it's not too late. We're doing everything late this year because it's COVID style.
It's fine. Everything's fine.
It's totally great. On the programming side, it will be fine. Like usually the paperwork and stuff is sorted out earlier because we know all these entry requirements and things years ahead of time. But when it comes to actually setting up a program, there's only so far ahead of time you can set up what animals are there and what they need done. So on our end, it's not that different from a normal year. The different part is knowing entry requirements for airports and things, and we just all gonna have to be flexible and work on it together. But we have local staff in the country who kind of know what to expect, knock on wood. And I don't really expect the entry requirements to change before the programs start in any way.
Gotcha. Cool. Awesome.
Sounds
Well,
good.
I will just put a little tidbit in there. The Thailand trip that I went on boosted my application to vet school tremendously. And I will say that was a major talking point during my interview. And I obviously got in. So just to throw that out there, they loved all of my unique, diverse experiences like that. And so it's definitely something to make you stand out. And they're looking to see if you can work with different kind of cultures and communities and do things outside of your comfort zone. So definitely keep that in mind.
Especially if you look at a school like St. Kitts, where one of the questions, right, is how they do living abroad. We have a lot of students at Ross. We have alumni at 30 of the 31 vet schools in the US and all the vet schools in the Caribbean and the UK. Can't remember if it's all of them in Canada right now, but schools know what Loop Abroad is, and they know that it's a high caliber program, and they know that you're getting appropriate level of veterinary experience. That's difficult, but you're not being allowed to do things that they don't actually want you doing. So I think in that sense, it's very well respected. And we felt that the virtual stuff has been really well received in terms of like, wow, what a chance for people to get shadowing when they can't get shadowing in person. So, and seeing that as an adaptable move by our students to say, okay, maybe I can't go to a clinic, but what else can I do? So there's reasons to do it beyond it being fun. Mainly we want you to have a wonderful experience with us and learn a lot and be exposed to veterinary medicine in other areas of the world and help us support these conservation efforts that are so important. But a nice side effect may be that it will help your application too.
Yeah, I'm obviously not trying to get into vet school. I just want to go to learn at this point. So
All right, I'm gonna hop off and go. I promised my child I would make him 5 birthday cakes for his 5th birthday. I've made 0 birthday cakes. It's 9:15 p.m.
Ooh, and ooh.
Good luck. It's a good thing that we have Instacart. They may be bringing a bunch of birthday cakes and we'll see.
It's fine. All right. Thank you so much for talking with us.
thank
Nice to see
you.
guys.
Yep.
See you later.
Good luck.
Thank you. Bye. Right.
But yeah, so if anyone had any questions for me or wanted to email me, I'm also in the Pre-Vet Club group me. Yeah, I'm around. I go to K-State here. If anyone had any questions about just getting into vet school or what it's like or anything, I will be here for 3 more years.
Yep.
So-
Liz will pretty much always be around.
Woo! All right, I'm done.
Okay, Maddie, we'll start with officer reports really fast because I know we've kept people over.
Okay, so we just have the kickball tomorrow at 3 o'clock at not Seco Park, the city park. So we will be there, and if I know it is supposed to rain, so if it does, I'm just planning on going to like to the rec and playing basketball or something. But kickball is like the first idea. So at 3 o'clock at City Park, and I'll send out a reminder in the group me. And yeah, so it'll be super fun. And then also I think we're gonna do t-shirts. So if you wanted to come and get your t-shirts and play kickball, that'd be great.
Yep, I will be there. At probably set up a booth or something. And I'll have my computer with the list and the 2 gigantic boxes of the t-shirts. I know a couple of people asked me if we had taken t-shirt sizes or why didn't we. We pretty much just went off what we ordered last year, which seemed to be enough plus some. And we did order from small, I believe, to 2, maybe even 3 XL if we needed any. So we have enough shirts, with small, medium, large being the most. But we do have enough shirts for everyone. So if you paid your dues, come get your shirts. And as long as you're an active member, you can come down and get it, okay? Sounds good. Any other things?
I didn't make a slide, but thank you to everyone that came to the Chipotle fundraiser. Grace added in everyone's fundraising points that sent us a receipt, plus some friends that sent in receipts. So check the Excel sheet that Weston made and make sure that your points got updated. And if you have any problems, you can just message Grace or I.
Okay, sounds good. Like what Lauren said, with the rain tomorrow, we'll update you guys as the rain starts coming. She has been checking, like she said, it should be later in the day, but if for some reason, we'll keep you guys updated on whether we're gonna switch or not. And if we do end up going to the rec, I'll still bring the t-shirts and set up outside or something. But yeah, thanks you guys for staying a little later. I'm gonna let you all go and enjoy the rest of your Thursday, okay?